Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I thank you for this opportunity to speak on my end of the week statement on jetties and passenger shelters in regards to the maritime and inter-island travellers, Honourable Speaker, and also in the process to highlight the need for government to put in more concerted effort and action for the construction of new jetties and passenger shelters, and also for the renovation and proper maintenance of existing ones, Honourable Speaker, to ensure the well-being and safety of our inter-island and maritime travellers, so that indeed no one is left behind. Honourable Speaker, I'm speaking on this issue as I'm very much aware of the problems faced by the maritime and inter-island travellers, as I'm also one of them and have experienced the same risks, dangers, and frustrations that one has to go through during that time. And Honourable Speaker, we on this side of the House, we continue to highlight the need to improve the infrastructure on our jetties and passenger shelters. From 2015, Honourable Speaker, I for one have continued to raise those issues. But having said that, we acknowledge that the work has been undertaken by the government, but unfortunately, despite the huge budgetary allocation given to Fiji Roads Authority that has the mandate on this work, we note that the budgetary allocations specifically for jetties and passenger shelters have been very minimal. For example, Honourable Speaker, let us look at some budgetary allocations for the Natovi jetty, Nambowalu and Loma Loma. In 2015, Natovi, for the Natovi jetty new ramp, 238,360 was allocated, but no actual work was carried out. In 2015, at Nambowalu, 2,526,613 was given, but only 1.2 million was used in the actual work. For Nambowalu in 2016, 710,000 was allocated, but no work was carried out. 2016 for Natovi, 1,096,330 was allocated, but no work was carried out. 2017-2018, Nambowalu, 2,752,294 allocation, but no work was carried out. For the Natovi waiting shed for the 2017-2018 budgetary allocation, $550,459 was allocated, but no work was carried out. And likewise for Loma Loma, jetty 2017-2018 budgetary allocation, 22,936 was allocated for Loma Loma jetty, but no work was carried out, Honourable Speaker. And as a matter of interest, those figures were extracted from their respective annual reports. We must note, Honourable Speaker, that for a waiting shed, it'll cost about 250,000, and I got that from one of the mainstream media reports. Honourable Speaker, we must note the heavy use of Natovi and the Nambowalu jetties, and these pose subsequent safety issues and that travellers face on a daily basis. For example, Honourable Speaker, on a daily basis, the Natovi and Nambowalu jetty can only accommodate one vessel berthing and to undertake all their operational activities within that time. Boats now have 24 hours turnaround. As we know in this House, it was approved the additional routes that was given to the shipping services providers. And right now, Ohana, Gounder, they have 2 turnaround trips, Natovi, Nambowalu daily. And furthermore, there's Gounder trips between Nambowalu and Ellington. And also there's trips between Natovi and Levuka. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, and as alluded to by the Honorable Minister Pramila Kumar in one of her interview with the media, she said that almost 1,000 passengers go through Natovi and Nambowalu. And I can believe that, Honorable Speaker. And in addition to that, there is also heavy vehicles, particularly the logging vehicles, the pine trucks, the buses, the transport trucks that transport goods across the islands, Honorable Speaker. And on a daily basis, I believe there will be about 100 or more of those heavy vehicles, and also small passenger cars, Honorable Speaker. So that scenario helps us to appreciate the heavy usage of the Natovi and Nambowalu jetties. And yet, there has not been really any major improvement in the infrastructure in regards to jetties and passenger shelters to be able to accommodate the heavy use on the facilities right now. Because those jetties and passenger shelters, the design and the capacity were designed years ago, maybe decades ago, and it does not have that capacity to be able to accommodate the heavy usage right now, Honorable Speaker. And also there is still a great need for improved lighting around the jetty and the passenger shelters, Honorable Speaker. The government had promised in 2017 that there will be a new passenger shelter at Natovi, Honorable Speaker. But unfortunately, right now, that has not been done. And the government side is very well aware of that as they continue to also travel between Natovi and Nambowalu, Honorable Speaker. Also in regards to the public facilities, the toilets, there's only one for women and one for men. And in both Natovi and Nambowalu, and unfortunately the Natovi one can remain closed from about 11 midnight to the early hours of the morning. And also, Honorable Speakers, the facilities are not disabled persons friendly. We acknowledge the increased trips provided by the shipping service providers, Honorable Speaker, and also the franchise, which has benefited the traveling public. But on the other hand, and that's the main issue that I would like to highlight, is that the government has been slow in the provision of the corresponding services in the construction of new jetties and passenger shelters, the renovation and maintenance of existing ones, Honorable Speaker. Moving on to the Maritime Islands, for those of us that have traveled to small islands that do not have jetties, where we have to offload to small fiber boats, the risk is huge, Honorable Speaker, and it's sad when we see senior citizens, particularly women and nursing mothers with their children, in having to sort of have some kind of skills to be able to offload safely on those moving fiber boats, Honorable Speaker. And on the Loma Loma jetty, it was promised in this House that it will be repaired in 2015, permanently repaired. Somehow it has not been done up until to date. And also there is still no passenger shelter being constructed there, Honorable Speaker. And you will recall, Honorable Speaker, that I also raised in this House on the Lakemba passenger shelter, which still has not also been constructed. And Honorable Speaker, in conclusion, I'd like to echo the words of Honorable Soriratu in his contribution yesterday in regards to the debate on the land bill. that the government is pragmatic and always fixing problems when they see it, and it is common sense and logic, and also out of necessity that it must be done. And it is also done with empathy. And I plead to the Honourable House to honour those words, particularly the Minister for Infrastructure, to ensure that those works are carried out for the jetties and passenger shelters, to ensure the safety and well-being of our travelling public, and also for the government just to stop playing lip service, to stop talking and do some real action and repair, maintain existing jetties, construct new ones, for example, in Karoko, as promised in 2019, that it is still in the pipeline, and it is still in the pipeline. And Honourable Speaker, on that note, I thank you for the opportunity.
I thank the Honourable Member for statement. I now call on the Minister for Infrastructure, Meteorological Services, Lands and Mineral Resources, the Honourable Jone Usamate, for his response. You have.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank the Honourable Member for end of week statement. I think first up, the government pays the utmost importance to the travelling public, not just to the travelling public in the urban areas, but also those that go out into our rural and maritime areas. And in this, by way of background, Mr. Speaker, sir, initially jetties and landings were constructed in our islands to enhance inter-island trade and development. They were initially designed to accommodate small boats that braved our waters to deliver supplies to the islands and also to trade produce and products to the mainland. Over the years, with increasing trade and economic activity, the size of the boat has increased, and the service of our maritime islands have increased, which have required jetty upgrades to accommodate bigger boats, such as the roll-on, roll-off vessels that were not used initially when those jetties were put in place. There has been, as the Honourable Member has said, an increase in the frequency of shipping services, bringing more passengers in the islands, and in this regard, there's always a high demand for public conveniences and waiting facilities. Mr. Speaker, sir, there is a total of 28 jetties in the list of FRA assets, of which 24 are operational, with 4 remaining that are either beyond repair or not safe for public use. After inspections carried out by FRA engineers, we found that of these 28 jetties, all of them needed maintenance, and 9 jetties needed an upgrade. So recommended works were recommended for safe berthing of commercial vessels and safe access for pedestrians. And the jetty services, there's a wide range of users. The passengers, the vehicles, police, customs, navy, fishing vessels, government supply ships, all of these ones. So through this period, FRA has been maintaining our nation's jetties nationwide. In the past 7 years, a total of 25.6 million was allocated for jetty routine maintenance and rehabilitation works. Honourable members talked about why some funds were sometimes put into the budget and not used. I just want to tell you that from the year 2016, this is the amount of money that FRA had for projects that they had to withdraw to deal with the emergency responses that we have. Cyclones, floodings. 2016, they had to take out 28.4 million from existing projects, move it to those things. 2016 to 2017, 35.5 million from projects that were planned, take it out for emergency response. 2017 to 2018, another 35 million. 2018-19, another 22.7 million. Another 2019-20, 11.7 million. 2020 to 2021, 24.8 million. 21 to 22, 26.8 million. Over this period, there's been a total of 185 million that we had targeted for projects, but because there's something happened in this country, a cyclone, a flood, we had to put some of those projects aside and take that fund and use it for something that was critical at that point in time. So there's always a focus on doing this, but we always hope that the disasters don't happen so that we can continue to provide this. So the commitment is there, but the circumstances that we find ourselves in are such that those funds have to be used for something else at that particular point in time. Mr. Speaker, so for waiting facilities, while responding to the oral question by the Honourable Aseri Radrodro on the similar subject this week, I have highlighted the current works and the future planned works by government. I wish to reiterate that currently, for the three main jetties in the north, namely Nambowalu, Sabsavu and Taviuni, all of them have a proper waiting shed with electricity, water supply, waiting area and a public convenience facilities. The waiting shed facilities are currently maintained by the respective tenants and vendors who also sell tea and food parcels in the areas. With Natobi Nambowalu as the busiest route between Vitilevu and Vonolevu at the moment, FRA has now facilitated a request received from the Savu Town Council, which looks after Savu and Nambowalu, to maintain the daily operation for the three jetty waiting shed areas. FRA hopes to finalize this agreement soon with the Savu Town Council so that they can maintain the standard of service throughout. Similar to, there are issues also with like in the market that we have in Nambowalu, the issue of vandalism, so hopefully through that partnership these issues will be addressed. Also in the waiting shed area and especially with the public convenience facilities. Mr. Speaker, sir, to further improve our jetties and waiting facilities, upgrading of our outer island jetties has been programmed under FRA. This will allow better movement of cargo, better movement of people, and this includes plans for the Koro Island roll-on, Roro type jetty, Makongai Roro type jetty, Moala Roro type jetty, Nambukeru Yasawirara pedestrian jetty, Onombalavu or Loma Lau Roro type jetty, and the Bunisea Duk jetty, Roro type. The planned improvement on these jetties, Mr. Speaker, sir, includes essential public convenience facilities such as parking where necessary, a waiting shelter with restrooms, and stakeholder offices. The physical construction is expected to commence within the next 2 years, and it will take 5 years to complete the program. Also, the Nambowalu new township development, there will be a passenger terminal building in Nambowalu. And as you know, there's a big development going on in Nambowalu at the moment, the development of the township. This has been something that has been close to the Prime Minister's heart. It's something that has been pushing for it. There's a lot of work. All the different agencies are working together in Nambowalu, developing the township and also developing what we hope to have there, a passenger terminal building in Nambowalu that will house a waiting area, an ablution block, office space for the Fiji Police Force, kiosks and parking area. And overall, we're hoping with the partnership of the DTCP, Ministry of Economy, FRA and all of the other agencies to make Nambowalu a climate resilient town. There's also, as I mentioned before, the two jetties that we are looking to upgrade. Initially now are Natobi Jetty and Nambowalu Jetty, because the high volume of traffic and also in Savu. So with all of these things, Mr. Speaker, sir, there are still challenges. I travel on these boats myself. I visit the facilities there. There has been some gradual improvement over the years. FRA is working slowly in partnership with those that we can work together to continue to upgrade. We put things in the budget. We hope that disasters don't strike, because when disasters do strike, funds have to be moved to other areas. And as I mentioned before, the total amount of money that we have to take out from existing projects, this is just for FRA. Just for FRA, over the past years from 2016, has been $185 million. That's why now also, when you're talking about the climate financing strategy, there's an emphasis on more resilient infrastructure. It's more expensive. When things are more expensive, that means it takes more time to build them and it absorbs more resources. That means that you will not be able to do as many as quickly as possible, but in the long term, it is of benefit to us because we save the maintenance and the repair costs in the future. That is the vision of government, Mr. Speaker, sir. Keep on focusing on more resilient infrastructure. Now I want to tell all the people in the maritime areas, now you find the difficulties at the moment. We have also experienced those, but please rest assured that this government is focused on making sure that we make your traveling experience as pleasing as possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
I thank the Honourable Minister. Honourable members, before we move on to the next speaker, I'd just like to acknowledge the presence in the